I was in church one day in Mass, and I'm praying away, and in front of me, at an angle of 90 degrees, there's a couple. Well, I say a couple, there was a man and a woman standing next to each other, and they looked miserable. So I started praying for them. And I said, Lord, bless that man and a woman. They just look so miserable. And he said, let's, which always worries me. But he said, tell them they will have children, but they'll have to wait a little bit more. I said, Lord, I don't even know if they're a couple. What if they're just, standing next to each other, or brother and sister? I could get into real trouble if I get this wrong. He said, trust me, tell them anyway. So I waited till the Mass was finished, and I thought, well, I'm not brave enough to do this. So I waited a little bit to see if they went out together, and sure enough, they went out separately. The man first, and then the woman, hung back and did some other things. They didn't seem to talk to each other. I thought maybe they don't even know each other. So I thought, well, I'll test this out a little bit. So I went to the man as he'd gone out just through the door, just outside the church, and I said, excuse me, do you know the woman back there, pointing to the woman who'd been standing beside a few minutes earlier? He said, sure, Mary, me wife, he said in an Irish accent. and I said, oh, great, now I knew they were married. I said, well, I believe that God has a word for you. And he looked a bit startled. And I said, well, God sometimes speaks to us and wants me to give you a message. And it's this, that you will have some children. Not just yet, you'll have to wait a little bit longer, but you will have children. And this man started to shout, Mary, Mary, get over here, get over here. And everybody, the congregation in the church, who are normally very quiet, are looking around to see what all the commotion is. And he doesn't stop shouting. I'm saying, shh. And he's saying, no, Mary, come over here, listen to this man. And now I'm really embarrassed, and the whole congregation is beginning to look. And I said a bit quietly, I repeated what I'd told him. And he said, you don't know what this means to us. And he began to cry, and she was already beginning to cry. And he rolled up his sleeves, and he had cut marks on his arm. He'd been self-harming. And he said, we're travelers. And we've been married 15 years. He didn't look old enough to be married 15 years, but I believed him. He said, we used to be into the drinking. We drink a lot of alcohol and lived very bad lives, but we've changed our lives around, and we've come back to church, but we've got no children. And this is a big shame in the community. Well, last night I was crying out to God, and I'd been cutting myself because don't know what else to do. I'm in such a mess. Don't you hear us? We're praying to you. Won't you listen to us when we pray for children? And here you are this morning, come to tell us that we'll have some children. I said, well, remember, you will have to wait a while longer, but he has promised you will have children. And he shook my hand so hard I thought my arm would fall off. And off they went, and as they went away, the Lord said quietly to me, wasn't that fun? And it was.